Welcome back to Taiwanica Podcast. Today we are talking about the power of negotiation. And now to introduce your host, a man who loves to eat fruit more than anything else, Eric Matthews.
There is one skill that affects your salary, your relationships, your family, your confidence, and your future. But most people don't study it. They only think about it when they are already under pressure. That skill is negotiation. In Chinese, 谈判. But today, I don't want you to think of negotiation as some aggressive business tactic. This is not about being pushy. It's not about being manipulative. It's not about becoming the loudest person in the room. Negotiation is much simpler than you think. It's about the ability to communicate what you want, understand what other people's wants are, and find a way forward without losing yourself. And whether you realize it or not, you are negotiating every day. Sure, with your boss, with your coworkers, but also with your partner, your parents, your children, even your friends, and even with yourself. By the end of today's episode, I'm going to give you one simple sentence you can use when you feel nervous to ask for what you need. Because for many people out there, the problem is not that they don't know what they want. The problem is they don't know how to ask. Before we go deeper, I want to say something honestly. The last 2 episodes of Taiwanica did not get many listens. Very few, actually. And I could make that mean something negative. I could say something more on the lines like maybe people don't care. Maybe the topic wasn't good. Or maybe I'm doing something wrong. But that would be the easy story. The more useful story is this. Maybe I need to negotiate better with my audience. Maybe I need to listen more. Maybe I need to communicate the value more clearly. Or something like maybe I just need the topic to be more connected to you the listener, daily problems. That is why today's episode matters. Because negotiation is not just what happens in a meeting room. It's how we adjust to reality. It is not how we stop silently accepting what is not working. It is how we stop saying, 没关系, it's okay. But in reality, it's not. So, Taiwanica is for people in Taiwan who don't just want to listen to things to survive pressure. This is for people who want to become clearer, stronger, and more conscious in daily life. And if you live in Taiwan, you already know this. A lot of things are indirect. People don't always say what they mean. At work, you may not want to challenge the boss. And at home, you may not want to disappoint your parents. In relationships, you may not want to create conflict. So you stay quiet. You avoid. You smile. And maybe you say something like 不好意思, or sorry about that. You know, the truth is this. Every time you avoid the conversation, you are still technically negotiating. But you're just negotiating against yourself. Let's make this real. Your boss gives you extra work at 5:30 p.m. You already plan to leave, you're tired, and you want to say, hey, can I do this tomorrow? But instead, you do it. You say, okay. That was a negotiation. You just gave your time away without asking for anything back. Let's do another example. You're in a job interview. They ask, what salary are you expecting? In Chinese, you could say something like, 你的期望薪资是多少? Or, you say something around the idea of what is the desired amount. and your heart starts to do something. You start to feel a little bit stressed. You start to feel like, oh man, I have some power here to negotiate. And negative things come into your head like, I don't want to look greedy, and you don't want to sound difficult. So you ask, well, what is the 一公司规定? What is the company's policy? That's very polite. But sometimes that sentence costs you money. Because if you don't clearly communicate your value, someone else will define it for you. This is not just about salary. It's about life. If you don't communicate your needs, other people will organize life around their needs. Not because they are bad, but because you never told them clearly. That is the cost of poor negotiation. Not dramatic, quiet, slow, expensive. Most people don't fear negotiation because they lack words. They fear negotiation because they fear what the other person might think. They think, 我怕被讨厌. I'm afraid I'll be disliked. 我怕被拒绝, or I'm afraid of being rejected. Or, other things like 我怕气氛变尴尬. I'm afraid that the atmosphere or the air in the room will get awkward. This is very real in Taiwan because harmony matters, respect matters, face matters. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Avoiding negotiation does not always protect harmony. Sometimes it will only create resentment. And you don't want to say something what you need because then you're going to create your own self-resentment. And because you didn't say what you need, you get angry at yourself later. You don't ask for clarity, and then you complain later. You don't set the boundary, and then you feel used later. Do you see the pattern? Because there's something that needs to be addressed, and that is we need to get clear. So, 清楚表达, right? If we have clear expression, our foundation of being able to move forward in negotiation is there. So, for some people, though, negotiation feels like a war. I win, you lose. That's why they avoid it. But healthy negotiation is not a war. It's not about one being bigger and stronger and the other one being weaker. A healthy negotiation kind of looks like this. I respect myself enough to speak clearly, and I respect you enough to listen. Okay, that's pretty powerful stuff. And, according to the University of Missouri, there was a negotiation that was done at home and at work and the community there. And they say that this is important because when we look at this happening naturally with different opinions, values, and goals, there's not usually going to be conflict when we are being open to listening to everybody. In fact, all conflict tends to go down because, hey, let's face it, difference is normal. And the problem is not knowing how to work with difference. It's when you learn to negotiate well by explaining your differences, you are not creating conflict anymore. You are creating structure. That's good. So you're saying, here is what I need. What do you need? And how do we move forward with this? This is mature communication, not drama, the big letter D word. Okay. Now, let's talk about confidence for a moment here. A lot of people wait to feel confident before they negotiate. It's the wrong order, okay? Confidence often comes from preparation. So before you negotiate, you want to feel confident. If you're in negotiating salary, you got to know the market range. If you want to ask your boss for support, you got to know your workload and their workload. If you're talking to your partner, you got to know what you actually feel first. If you're talking to your parents, you got to know what your decision is before you talk to them. Preparation gives you your nervous system, and that nervous system will start to stand on its own. You'll have more confidence because it's no longer reacting to everything. But without preparation, you're going to walk into a conversation hoping your emotions will carry you. Hey, little spoiler alert, they won't. So before any important negotiation, ask 3 questions. Number 1, what do I want? Number 2, what might they want? Number 3, what is a fair next step? What is a good next step? Simple. Not perfect, but hey, it's clear, right? In Chinese, the 3 steps might be something like this. 我想要什么？对方想要什么？下一步怎么走？比较公平。Okay, something along these lines. This alone will make you better than most people because most people, they're usually just reacting to things. Now, before we go any deeper, I want to mention something about how you can gain clarity easily. This is one of the things that I created. It's called Start Now because many people don't need more random motivation. They need a place to practice inner skills that make conversations like this possible. Confidence, emotional control, communication, self-worth, clarity. Inside Start Now, there are over 500 personal development trainings, plus content you could read, listen to, and watch when you need a reset. So if you're listening and thinking, I don't just want to understand this, I want to practice it, then go to startnow.iachievetoday.com/well18. Or you could just go to the bottom of the content section in the episode. I have it copied there, and you just click the link. By the way, there's going to be an exercise I'm going to share with you on this episode today at the end, so make sure you stick around for that. So let's get back to the negotiation, how to make it easier. At the beginning, I said I would give you this one sentence you can use when you feel nervous to ask for what you need. Here it is. I understand your side, and I'd like to discuss what could work for both of us. Okay, that's a very powerful sentence, so let's just say it one more time. I understand your side, and I'd like to discuss what could work for both of us. That sentence is simple. It does 3 things simultaneously. First, it lowers the defensiveness that your other person you're talking to might have. Second, it gives you permission to speak. And finally, it frames the conversation around cooperation. Okay, I understand your side. I like to discuss what could work for both of us. In Chinese, you could say something like this. 我了解你的立场，我也想讨论看看怎么样对我们双方都比较合理或合适. Okay. This is not going to be weak. Okay. This is actually very strong. You're coming from a position that is not loud and you're not losing any control. Why? Because you're being clear. Okay. Now, let's just apply it for a second here. Your boss gives you way too many tasks, like any other day. And instead of saying yes and suffering, you say something like this. 我今天可以先完成 A 或 B, 但两个都做完成可能会不太现实。你觉得哪一个比较重要? So I can complete A or B first today, but finishing both might not be realistic. Which one do you think is more important? Hey, that's a negotiation. You're not rebelling. You're not fighting back. No disrespect. Just simply being real. Negotiation. Okay? when you are wanting to do something like that, let's say you're in a situation that you're wanting to talk to your boss or to somebody that makes you feel uncomfortable. There's a very easy strategy to build your confidence, and you can apply it immediately. It's called the color technique. Okay. I want you right now, if you're doing something, just stop for a moment if you're possible. If you're driving, please don't stop. But if you're able to stop moving for a second, just listen. I want you to think of a color that represents confidence for you, whatever that color might be. Okay, you got it? Okay, now that you have your color, I want you to imagine the center of your body having a circle of that color. And imagine that circle starting to expand and go around your entire body. Just see it. Just see that color transform your entire body into that color. Your skin is that color. Your eyes are that color. Your hair is that color. The inside of you is that color. Your heart is that color. Your lungs are that color. All of it. Your bones are that color. Everything. It becomes that color. Now just notice. Notice the confidence that you're feeling. Okay, there's something that's happening here. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story. One time when I was trying to learn how to be good at negotiating, I had to do it for a business I was working for because I needed to sell in order to make money. Whew. It was very difficult for me because I had a huge fear of rejection. So for a while, I didn't make any sales. And it was starting to notice because my pocket was starting to become more and more empty of money. It was not a good time. I started to pick up little things about negotiating. One key thing that really made the difference was just simply being a very good listener instead of interrupting people, because nobody loves anybody who interrupts them. So I shut my mouth and I started listening and just simply closing my mouth throughout an entire conversation, giving the usual tune-in of letting them know that I'm listening, like, oh yeah, is that right? Or did that happen? And just constantly listening to what they say and reaffirming it to them. And then all of a sudden they seemed very interested in me. What happened? Well, the main thing that was different between before and after was that I now had an ability to be able to connect with them and only focus on them. That was the power of this exercise. So when I started to recognize active listening and using this color tune-in, things started to change for me rapidly, where success started to come in all the time. Of course, there are more things that you can learn to help you with this process, but for now, those are some really easy ways for you to start. Okay, so you have your practice for this week. Tune into the color. It's not the biggest one, and it doesn't cause you any risk in a conversation because they don't know you're doing it. And it's not going to be scary either. But just simply think of yourself with that color before you go into a conversation. And also try to make sure you start with something small. A small, easy conversation with somebody like your partner or your parents or a friend. And just try it out. See if you can make a difference by doing these strategies that we learned today. And if you do, definitely let us know by writing something on our Instagram or writing it on as a review, because we would love to know that life-changing factors are starting to happen for you.